Hey everyone, and welcome back. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our deep dives.
Right.
You already know we're going deep on TSMC today. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company.
That's right.
And a lot of you have been asking for the lowdown on their stock. We're going to get into all that.
Yeah. We're going to break down everything you need to know to make an informed decision. But before we get into whether or not it's a good buy or not,
Yeah.
we really got to zoom out.
Yeah.
And take a look at this company.
For sure.
What they do.
Yeah.
They are actually the world's largest dedicated independent semiconductor foundry.
That's a mouthful.
It is. So basically, they make the chips that power pretty much everything.
Yeah.
But they don't design them. So they're the manufacturing muscle behind all those brains.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So, when I think of chips, I think of my iPhone.
Absolutely.
I mean, are they the ones making those chips?
They are. So Apple will design the chip.
Yeah.
But then they'll go to TSMC and be like, hey, can you actually make this for us?
Wow. And they're the best at it.
They are considered the best.
Which is probably why they've had such a good run, right?
Absolutely. They've got we'll talk about this later, but a durable competitive advantage.
We'll get into that.
That's allowed them to basically become the go-to for so many companies.
Wow. Well, and I think it's interesting, too, thinking about this industry as a whole, the semiconductor industry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's expected to grow almost 20% globally this year.
Yeah, the projections are huge.
That's wild.
And it really puts TSMC's potential into perspective.
Yeah.
When you think about they're already the biggest.
Yeah.
And this industry is just exploding.
Yeah. So, later on, we definitely want to dive into whether or not TSMC would be a good fit for someone like a Warren Buffett, a value investor.
For sure.
But before we get into all of that, I think it's really important to zoom out and look at the entire semiconductor landscape.
Right. And it's a fascinating world, one that has become incredibly vital to basically everything.
Yeah.
I mean, smartphones, computers, cars, medical devices,
Right.
all of them rely on these chips,
Yeah.
these tiny but powerful chips.
And, speaking of cars, one of the things that really stood out to me when I was kind of going through all the research that you sent over was this idea of increasing semiconductor content.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Are we talking about self-driving Teslas? Are they just jam-packed with chips?
Yeah, you got it. Cars are becoming so sophisticated these days, relying on more and more chips for things like driver assistance, navigation systems, entertainment systems, you name it.
Yeah.
And it's not just cars. Almost every device is getting smarter.
Right.
Which means the demand for these advanced chips, the ones that TSMC specializes in, is only going to keep growing.
Okay, that makes sense. And then you've got things like artificial intelligence.
Right.
5G networks.
Yep.
High-performance computing. Those are all pushing the boundaries of what chips can do right.
Absolutely. And that's where TSMC really shines. They're producing the cutting-edge chips that make all those advancements possible. For example, their N3 and N2 process technologies are some of the most advanced in the world.
Okay, hold on. So I need a little more on that. I know that refers to the size of transistors on the chips.
Yeah.
But what does that actually mean for, my phone or my computer?
So think of it this way. The smaller the nanometer size, the more transistors you can fit on a chip.
Okay.
And more transistors equals more processing power, faster speeds, and even better energy efficiency.
Right.
So TSMC is leading the charge in shrinking those transistors, which is allowing their clients to build even more powerful and efficient devices.
So they're basically giving companies like Apple the tools to make even cooler tech.
Exactly.
That's pretty awesome. But I imagine they're not the only ones in this game.
Right.
Who are some of their biggest rivals?
It's a competitive market. You've got companies like Samsung,
Okay.
who are really big in memory chips and also have their own foundry business.
Okay.
They're a major force, especially with all the Galaxy phones out there.
Right.
And then there's Intel.
Intel Inside.
Exactly. A name synonymous with processors.
Yeah.
And they're also expanding their foundry operations.
Okay. So how does TSMC stack up against these giants?
Right.
What makes them stand out?
Well, one key difference is that TSMC is what's called a pure-play foundry.
Okay.
Unlike Samsung or Intel, who also design their own chips, TSMC focuses solely on manufacturing.
Gotcha.
Think of it like a high-end tailor. They take the designs from their clients, and using their incredible manufacturing expertise and these advanced technologies, create these basically tailor-made chips.
So they're kind of like the silent partner.
Right.
Powering all these big names in tech from behind the scenes.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that their focus on manufacturing has given them a significant edge. Okay. They've built this incredible moat, which is a term Warren Buffett uses to describe a company's durable competitive advantage.
Okay, so what makes up this moat?
Well, it's a combination of factors.
Yeah.
First, their technological leadership.
Okay.
We've already touched on their cutting-edge process technologies.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond that. They are constantly innovating, investing heavily in research and development to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I read that their new plant in Arizona is already achieving higher yields than their facilities in Taiwan.
Absolutely.
Which is pretty impressive.
Higher yields mean they're producing more usable chips per wafer, which is making them more efficient and profitable.
Right.
And it's just a clear indicator of their manufacturing prowess.
Okay, so we've got technological leadership.
Yes.
What else contributes to this moat?
Another key factor is their unparalleled manufacturing expertise.
Okay.
We're talking decades of experience, a highly skilled workforce, and this relentless focus on quality control.
It sounds like they've really honed their craft over the years.
They have, and it's incredibly difficult for competitors to replicate that level of expertise.
What are their customer relationships?
That's another crucial piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
They've built these really strong, long-standing relationships with some of the biggest tech giants in the world. Companies like Apple, Qualcomm, NVIDIA.
Wow.
These companies rely on TSMC for their most advanced chips, and that kind of trust and partnership is incredibly valuable.
So it's not just about having the best tech, it's also about the relationships and the reputation to back it up.
Exactly.
What about the scale of their operations?
Right.
Does that play a role?
Absolutely. TSMC's sheer size and scale give them significant advantages.
Okay.
They can leverage their massive production capacity
to
negotiate better deals with suppliers and spread their costs over a larger volume of chips.
Okay.
This makes it very challenging for smaller competitors to compete on price.
All right, so their moat is built on technological leadership, manufacturing expertise, customer relationships, and scale advantages.
That's right.
But they're not without their challenges, right?
Right. And that brings us to the geopolitical risks that TSMC faces.
Yeah.
Their main manufacturing base is in Taiwan.
Right.
Which, as we all know, is at the center of some pretty intense geopolitical tensions.
Yeah, that's a big one. Before we dive into the potential impact of those tensions, though, I just wanted to remind everyone we have a ton of great content over on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
We'd love for you to head over there and check it out.
Yeah, go subscribe.
And while you're there, let us know in the comments what stocks you're interested in.
Yeah. What do you want to learn about?
We're always looking for new deep dives to explore.
Always looking for inspiration.
And don't forget to check the description below for links to all the sources we use for this episode so you can do your own research.
Always a good idea.
Okay, back to TSMC. So how could these geopolitical tensions actually affect their business?
Right.
What are the potential risks we need to consider?
Well, it's a complex situation.
Yeah.
But let's break it down. I think the biggest concern is the potential for disruption to TSMC's supply chains.
Right.
You know, they rely on this global network of suppliers for raw materials, specialized equipment.
Yeah.
And any kind of political or military conflict in the region could disrupt those supply lines, leading to production delays and shortages.
That makes sense. And I imagine it's not just about like the physical movement of goods, right? There could be political pressure, sanctions, export restrictions, all sorts of things that could make it harder for TSMC to operate.
Absolutely. We could see governments trying to exert more control over the semiconductor industry, which could lead to like restrictions on trade and investment.
Right.
TSMC might even face pressure to choose sides.
Oh, wow.
Which could alienate some of their customers or limit their access to certain markets.
So it's a lot to navigate.
It is.
Before we get too deep into like those potential downsides, let's take a step back and look at the positive side of things.
Okay.
I mean, their financials seem pretty strong.
Oh, absolutely. They've had this incredible run.
Yeah.
A 13-year streak of record revenue.
Wow.
Their net income in 2022 was a whopping NT 1,016.53 billion, with earnings per share of NT $39.20.
Wow.
And while there have been some fluctuations in revenue, mainly due to the cyclical nature of the semiconductor industry, their projected earnings per share for 2025 are expected to jump by almost 20%.
Almost 20%. That's a pretty strong indicator of growth, even considering like the current economic climate.
It really is. And if you look at their capital allocation strategy, they're clearly committed to investing for the long term. They've announced this massive surge in capital expenditure for 2025.
Wow.
Focusing heavily on their 2-nanometer process technology. So this is a multi-billion-dollar investment that will help them maintain their technological edge.
Right.
For years to come.
It sounds like they're not just resting on their laurels.
No.
They're actively pushing the boundaries of what's possible in chip manufacturing.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that makes them so attractive from a value investor's perspective.
Right.
They're a leader in a high-growth industry with a strong competitive advantage and a track record of delivering solid financial results.
Okay, I'm starting to see why someone like Warren Buffett might be interested in TSMC.
Yeah.
Speaking of, we promised our listeners a deep dive into whether TSMC would pass the Warren Buffett test.
Right.
For a good investment.
Yes.
Are you ready to put on your value investor hat?
I'm always ready for a little Buffett analysis. Let's go through his key principles one by one and see how TSMC stacks up.
Sounds good. First up, long-term prospects.
Okay.
Does TSMC have staying power?
Well, we've already established that they're the dominant force in a rapidly growing industry.
Right.
With the strong competitive advantage. And based on their investments and strategic decisions, it's clear they're playing the long game. So I'd say they check that box.
All right, next up, understandable business.
Okay.
Is it clear how TSMC makes money?
Their business model is pretty straightforward. They manufacture chips, they get paid for it. It's not some complex web of different revenue streams or obscure financial instruments. They're a manufacturing powerhouse, plain and simple.
Okay, check mark for understandable business.
Yep.
Now, strong financials.
Okay.
Do they have a track record of consistent earnings and a solid balance sheet?
We've already touched on their impressive revenue and net income figures.
We have.
They've also maintained a healthy operating margin, even with the cyclical ups and downs of the semiconductor industry.
Right.
And their balance sheet is rock solid, with low debt and plenty of cash on hand.
So far, so good.
Looking good.
What about trustworthy and competent management?
From everything we've seen, their management team is highly experienced.
Okay.
With a proven track record of making strategic decisions that have propelled the company forward.
Right.
They've navigated industry shifts, geopolitical challenges, and economic downturns.
Wow.
While consistently delivering value to shareholders. Plus, remember, their founder even considered the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, as a potential successor.
That's right.
That says a lot about their commitment to attracting top talent.
That's a pretty solid endorsement. So we've covered long-term prospects, understandable business, strong financials, and trustworthy management.
We have.
All signs are pointing to a yes for the Warren Buffett test.
Right.
But there's one crucial question left.
Okay.
Is TSMC trading at a discount to its intrinsic value?
Right.
That's where things get a bit more complicated.
It does.
We need to conduct a thorough discounted cash flow analysis, or DCF, to determine that. And of course, we need to consider market sentiment. How are other investors valuing the company?
Right, exactly.
Unfortunately, we don't have that information readily available in the sources you provided.
Right.
But that's the beauty of value investing. It's about doing your own research.
Absolutely.
Digging into the numbers.
Yep.
And making your own informed decisions.
It is.
This deep dive is just a starting point.
Right.
A framework for your own analysis.
Exactly.
Couldn't agree more. We've given you the tools and insights. Now it's up to you to go deeper.
Yep.
And decide whether TSMC is the right investment for you.
Exactly.
Well, this has been an incredible journey into the world of TSMC.
It really has.
From their tiny but powerful chips to the geopolitical forces shaping their future. It's clear they're a company worth watching.
Absolutely.
And as we've emphasized throughout this deep dive, it's all about giving you the tools and knowledge to make your own informed decisions.
100%.
Do your own research, consider your risk tolerance, and remember, investing is a marathon, not a sprint.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
A huge thank you to our expert for breaking it all down for us.
Happy to be here.
And to you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.
Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our future episodes, where we'll be exploring even more fascinating companies and technologies.
Until next time.
Until next time.